Hello, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to tell you about a wild tale from my youth about the time I almost fought a bully named Mooseleg. It's a very Canadian tale, and this took place where I grew up. I actually grew up out east in a small city named North Bay, which was just a few hours northwest of Toronto. I live in Vancouver now, which is on the west coast. So anyways, it was a weird city, but it was cool. It was a nice place to grow up, but not a place I'd like to settle down. My whole saga with Mooseleg took place in grade 9. How old are you in grade 9? I'm always bad with this. I don't know. We'll say I was 14 and a half. And just a little background on Mooseleg. This kid, that was his nickname because apparently in grade 7 or grade 8 in junior high, he brought a moose leg into school and he left it in his locker and it just started rotting and stuff. And that's how he got the nickname Mooseleg. So yeah, he was kind of weird like that. Also, he was notorious for keeping his toenails collected in like a jar, a small jar. So Mooseleg was a wild man. He was weird and all that, but he had friends. He was popular, you know, people liked him. At the time this story started, I didn't know anything about Mooseleg. It was grade 9, and that's the start of high school in Ontario. So it's like a whole bunch of schools coming together. So I didn't know about Mooseleg at that point, but I got introduced pretty quickly, let me tell you. So okay, if we're gonna tell the whole story, we gotta go back to how it all started. One day in grade 9, I was sitting at lunch with my friends, enjoying our lunch peacefully, when all of a sudden I feel something in my ear. Okay, so I looked to my left and I realized the kid beside me is putting a baby carrot in my ear. And I guess he was trying to get his friends to laugh, and they did laugh. And so I was patient, you know. I told him, I said, don't do that. I said it sternly. I said, don't do that. And I don't think they took it seriously when I said that, you know. He kind of laughed it off. Yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the kid who did this, by the way, was the grade 9 class rep. He was our class rep. His name was Mark. He was a real popular, but kind of a dorky kid. He was the class 9 rep. Okay, he was our rep, putting carrots in kids' ears. Nice representative. And he was pretty popular, but he was like really preppy, you know. He was like preppy popular. He wasn't like in with the cool kids. So anyways, I tell him to stop. I give him a warning, and I continue on eating my lunch, and a few moments later he puts the carrot in my ear again, and that set me off. And I stood up and I just started socking him in the forehead because he was covering his face. So his forehead was open. So I hit him in the forehead a few times. And then after that, he begged me to stop. And he said, I'm sorry, profusely. He was begging for mercy, and his eyes were watering. It was a very satisfying moment. I was punching him in the forehead. And then all his friends were like, oh, they weren't laughing now. They were all like, they were mortified. And yeah, no one expected it. No one expected it. I just always hated it when people try to make someone the butt of their joke, some random person. That sets me off right away. I hate that. I've always hated that. And I'm not a confrontational person either, or a violent person at all. Quite the opposite. I try to avoid that if at all possible, but he totally crossed the line. I'm not going to let him make a fool of me. So anyways, I stopped punching him, and I said, okay, we're good, blah, blah, blah. And so I finished my lunch. I think about a week or two went by before Mooseleg entered the picture. So anyways, we're at lunch again. It's about a week later, and we're sitting there just eating our lunch, minding our own business, and I feel something in my ear again. I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's not a carrot this time, though. This time it's a gummy candy. And so I turn around, and it's not Mark. This time, it's Mooseleg, okay? And Mooseleg was a big kid. Okay, this was in grade 9, and I was pretty big, too, for my age. I was tall, but I was really dangly. I was dreadfully dangly. And Mooseleg was one of the biggest kids in our grade. Height-wise, I think he was about 6'3" or 6'4", and he was lean, and he was a big kid. And now I don't really know what to do, because Mark was just kind of a punk, but Mooseleg was a little intimidating. So he was standing behind me, and he did that, and I said, you know, don't do that. Or I said something, but I kept eating my lunch, and we continue on eating our lunch, and about 10 seconds later, he puts the thing in again. what do I do here? Everyone's expecting me to retaliate, you know? I set a bar with Mark, you know? Everyone's like, oh, you don't mess with Dustin, he'll punch your forehead off. So I didn't want to let everyone down, but also Mooseleg was a big kid. But mainly, I didn't want to let everyone down, so I pushed my chair out into his legs, and I stood up and I pushed him. I said, don't fucking do that. And then everyone was like, whoa, whoa. This time it was a big scene, much bigger scene than when I punched Mark. Because it was funny, when I punched Mark, like, no one noticed. But this time, everyone was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. A bunch of people saw it. And Mooseleg's like, yeah, what are you going to do about it or something? And then, I don't know, I kind of, you know, backed away a little bit. I just sat down and said, just leave me alone or whatever, you know, something like that. you know, and then I kind of forget what happened, but you know, we exchanged words or whatever. I finished my lunch, but then everyone got talking, you know, it was like a big thing, and all my friends are like, oh, Dustin, are you gonna fight Mooseleg? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know, maybe. I went along with it, sort of. Peer pressure, that's the moral of the story. Don't give in to peer pressure, seriously. I did when I was that age. I gave into peer pressure all the time. I wanted to be accepted and be cool and all that. And I was never like super unpopular, but I was never popular. I was kind of like, I don't know, a misfit, if you will. But I did give into peer pressure sometimes. And then I guess maybe I wanted to be seen as the cool kid that doesn't take shit from anyone, who'll take on Mooseleg, the biggest kid in the grade, even though I have no fist fighting skills at all. And so I gave in to peer pressure and I said, yeah, I'll fight him, sure, I'll fight him. And everyone's talking about it, so it gets back to Mooseleg, and Mooseleg's like, of course I'll fight him, I'm huge. The next day, in the next couple days, everyone's like, yeah, you're gonna fight Mooseleg, and I'm like, yeah, fucking right, I'm gonna fight Mooseleg. I'm gonna mess him up too. And I'm getting pretty nervous. It's the talk of the school, and this was a big school. It was like there's a couple thousand kids there or something like that. Then one night I decide I was really nervous. I tell my brother about it. He knows about it, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bring a fist filler. That'll solve all my problems, which is like something you put in your fist to make your punch harder. I guess. I didn't know anything about fighting, so I brought like a socket, a long socket, you know, meant for like nuts. And I'm like, yeah, that'll be a good fist filler, and it probably was. But anyways, I brought that to school, and I let a couple of my close friends know. I'm like, look what I brought, this socket wrench. And then those blabbermouths must have, you know, said something to someone. It gets out, and it spreads like wildfire. And everyone knows Dustin's got a socket wrench. And then the message gets like contorted as it passes along to people, and it turns into socket to socket wrench to wrench. And eventually people think I have a wrench, and people are coming up to me and they're like, yo, I heard you got a wrench, and you're gonna mess Mooseleg up with this wrench. I'm like, no, it's just a socket, you know, it's like a fist filler. And I was trying to play it cool. But inside I was like, oh my god, I cannot fight this guy, I will lose for sure. But also I wanted to be cool, and I thought maybe I could win. Maybe if I land one good punch with that socket wrench fist. So it's out of my hands at that point, you know. Everyone's setting up the times. Everyone's like, yeah, tomorrow at B lunch at, you know, like 12:35, we're going to be in the foyer, and, you know, we're going to fight. And I'm like, yeah, that works, whatever. I kept going along with it, peer pressure, you know. And so the day comes, you know, everything's set up, and everyone knows we're fighting then. Everyone goes to eat their lunch for about 15 minutes. And then it was decided we meet in the foyer, which was some like weird sort of section in the hallway in front of some office. I don't know why they call it a foyer. Some weird Canadian French thing. But anyways, we're going to meet in the foyer. So I eat my lunch and we go in the foyer, and there's like a whole pack of kids following me. There's like 100 kids following me. And there's more kids on my side, but then Mooseleg, you know, he had a respectable posse too. And then so we're all going to the foyer, and there's like hundreds of kids, and everyone's chattering. They're like, oh yeah, you know, Mooseleg's gonna fuck him up. And then a few people were like, oh no, Dustin's gonna win. And I'm like, no I'm not. Clearly Mooseleg's gonna win. Now my brother also goes to my school at this point. He's 2 years older than me, and he was in grade 11 or 12, I guess. You know, it's about the whole Mooseleg thing. And then one of my good friends, Chris, he goes and tells my brother, he's like, yo, Mooseleg and Dustin are about to fight, and I don't think Dustin wants to. He went and told my brother, and my brother came, and at the time Mooseleg and I were in the foyer, and everyone's like, you gonna fight him? Everyone's asking. I'm like, Yeah, I guess so. And I'm just stalling, and the atmosphere was super intense, and the tension was really high. And at one point, Mooseleg said, "You know what? I'll give you one free shot." And I almost took that offer. You know, maybe I could hit him square in the jaw and knock him out. But again, I was pretty dangly, and Mooseleg was pretty big. And so I kind of, said, no, no. And at that point, my brother showed up. And then also another character showed up. This older guy started walking in. He was maybe 40 years old. And everyone was like, who's this? Who's this? And it was Mooseleg's uncle. And his name was Big Red, apparently. He was like a local rapper. That was hilarious because my brother showed up at the same time. And then my brother and Mooseleg's friends start going at it. And my brother's friends and them. And there's like a big like skerfuffle. No one's fighting. But my brother's like calling out this Big Red guy. He's like, Big fucking Red. And everyone's laughing at Big Red. And I thought that was funny because Mooseleg brought his uncle. So he told his uncle about it. So I think Mooseleg must have been, scared too to some degree to have brought his uncle. I thought that was kind of funny. And then eventually it didn't come to blows, we didn't fight, but this Big Red guy was there. My brother was making fun of him, and I think my brother and his friends basically say, no one's gonna fight, blah blah blah, and it died. I let everyone down. Everyone was like, oh, whatever, but it was a pretty funny story. And actually, Mooseleg wasn't really a bad kid. I saw him several times after that event over the next 4 or 5 years until I moved out to BC. When I was picking up weed, he was dealing weed and stuff and some other things too. And sometimes I'd see him when I was picking up weed. And it was a fairly small town, like 50,000 people. And so all the dealers sort of knew each other. Everyone knew who the dealers were. And he was one of them. So when I was picking up, sometimes I'd see him in that crowd and we'd smoke a joint together and we'd talk. And we'd laugh about that whole thing. And we'd both say the same thing. We'd say, I didn't even want to fight at all. And everyone else set the whole thing up for us. Everyone else wanted to see a fight so bad. They basically planned the whole thing, and we both just went along with it. And we both kind of said how stupid it was. And it just goes to show how much peer pressure can affect someone. They'll let it bring you to a point where you're fighting someone and you don't even want to. And it's a good lesson to learn that I wish I had learned sooner. Don't let anyone dictate what you're going to do. Just don't do anything you're uncomfortable doing, period. Anyways, a handful of years ago, I don't know, I'm bad with time, but maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I learned that Mooseleg had actually passed away. And I learned that while I was living out here in BC. And the article wasn't clear onto what happened, but I know he had his problems with drugs. And I don't know, I suspect maybe it had something to do with that. I didn't really follow up, but he passed away. And that sucks. So that's my story of Mooseleg and the time I almost fought him, even though neither of us wanted to. And he wasn't a bad kid. He was just maybe kind of mixed up. And, I had my own problems too. So no one's perfect. To any younger viewers who might be watching, don't give in to peer pressure. Just be your own person, always. And that's it. That's my video. Thank you all for watching. I'll have some new content for you soon, I'm sure. And have a great night. Cheers. Bye.